Genesis 2:4-25. Devotional focus verse. And the Lord God said, "It is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him an helpmeet for him." Genesis 2:18. Just days after their marriage on February 5, 1812, Adoniram and Ann Judson set out to India as missionaries. It was unthinkable in that era for a young woman to work among the heathen in primitive surroundings, but Ann had carefully considered the promise she made in taking the marriage vow and was determined to support her husband in what she knew God had called him to do. Ordered by the government to leave India shortly after their arrival, the couple began their missionary work in Burma, a land of over 15 million people who had never heard the message of salvation. Their work was stressful, and initial results were almost non-existent, but Ann's purpose to support her husband never wavered. In 1823, war between Britain and Burma broke out, and Adoniram was thrown into the death prison at Ava along with other missionaries. Surrounded by the vilest criminals in the Burman capital, the men suffered unspeakably for 9 months, chained together with iron bands about their ankles and laying in filth like pigs in a sty. Their unbearable situation was alleviated only by the efforts of Adoniram's caring wife. Ann was unremitting in her self-sacrifice during this horrendous time, proving her devotion to her husband in spite of incredible personal danger. She hid his translation of the New Testament so that it was preserved for the Burman church. Heedless of threats against herself, she traveled in blazing sun from office to office and valiantly pled with government officials for her husband's life with such earnestness that at one point even the rough old governor of the prison was moved to tears. In spite of the fact that she was pregnant at the time, she secretly brought supplies and food to Adoniram and his fellow prisoners, who had been left to starve and die. Her sweet face and gentle presence so won over the hearts of the people that she was called the angel of the prison. What a comfort and encouragement she must have been to her suffering husband. In today's text, we read the account of God creating the first woman, Eve, to come alongside the first man, Adam, and be a helper to him. Just as Adoniram Judson had many opportunities to thank God for the helper God gave him in his wife, men and women through the ages of time have proved the wisdom and beauty of God's design plan for marriage. When God's plan is honored and practiced, the result is always the same: one man and one woman living together in a union of mutual support, respect, and loving care until death separates them. Today, think about the beauty of God's plan for marriage, and like Ann Judson did, purpose in your heart to uphold the principles He has ordained for this unique and precious union. Background information. In this text block, greater detail is given about what God had already created. Verses 4 through 6 describe a greenhouse-like effect where condensation in the form of a dew-like mist watered the ground. Verse 7 offers additional details about the creation of man, recording that man was formed from the dust or soil of the ground. The word translated formed indicates a shaping by hand, as a potter would shape clay. Man was unique among all of God's creation, for it is specifically noted that God breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, something that was not done in the creation of the animals. A description of the Garden of Eden is provided in verses 8 through 14. Despite the identification of some familiar landmarks, such as the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers, the exact location of the Garden of Eden is unknown. Included in this section is the first mention of the tree of life, as well as the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. In verses 15 through 17, God instructed Adam to dress and keep the Garden of Eden. God also commanded man not to eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The Hebrew negative used in verse 17 indicates a permanent command, and the restriction was indicative of man's subordinate relationship to God, his Creator. The importance of God's command was revealed by the severity of the punishment. Verse 18 records the only time in the creation account when God announced that something was not good, and that was the fact that man was alone. The remainder of the chapter describes God's creation of woman to be a suitable or meet helper for man. She was not formed from the earth as Adam was, but made or built from the rib of the man. The rib contained all the genetic code God had already created in Adam, and thus the first man's genetic code was supernaturally transmitted into the first woman. Eve was designed to be a uniquely appropriate companion for Adam. At that point, God, in effect, instituted the marriage relationship, ordaining that the needs of man would be met in an exclusive and intimate bond where two separate and distinct individuals would unite and become one flesh. Verse 24. Conclusion. God recognized that it was not good for man to be alone, so he provided companionship for Adam through the creation of woman.
These are the generations of the heavens and of the earth when they were created, in the day that the Lord God made the earth and the heavens. And every plant of the field before it was in the earth, and every herb of the field before it grew, for the Lord God had not caused it to rain upon the earth, and there was not a man to till the ground. But there went up a mist from the earth, and watered the whole face of the ground. And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. And the Lord God planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed. And out of the ground made the Lord God to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight, and good for food, the tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And a river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from thence it was parted, and became into four heads. The name of the first is Pison, that is it which compasseth the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold. And the gold of that land is good, there is bdellium and the onyx stone. And the name of the second river is Gihon, the same is it that compasseth the whole land of Ethiopia. And the name of the third river is Hiddekel, that is it which goeth toward the east of Assyria. And the fourth river is Euphrates. And the Lord God took the man, and put him into the garden of Eden to dress it and to keep it. And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, Of every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat. But of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, thou shalt not eat of it, for in the day that thou eatest thereof thou shalt surely die. And the Lord God said, It is not good that the man should be alone, I will make him an helpmeet for him. And out of the ground the Lord God formed every beast of the field, and every fowl of the air, and brought them unto Adam to see what he would call them, and whatsoever Adam called every living creature, that was the name thereof. And Adam gave names to all cattle, and to the fowl of the air, and to every beast of the field, but for Adam there was not found an helpmeet for him. And the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam, and he slept, and he took one of his ribs, and closed up the flesh instead thereof. And the rib, which the Lord God had taken from man, made he a woman, and brought her unto the man. And Adam said, This is now bone of my bones, and flesh of my flesh, she shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. And they were both naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed.